Welcome back to The Critique. Today we're looking at a script from a creator named Nuxanor. It's a high-energy political commentary video from February 2026, and it covers a lot of ground. Don Lemon, immigration, even trash in New York City.
Yeah, this one has a ton of raw energy. The creator's stated goal is to, and I'm quoting here, radicalize a generation. So I'm really interested in whether the sort of chaotic style helps that goal, or if it actually gets in the way.
Let's jump right in. The first thing that really stands out is a lack of narrative cohesion.
The glue.
Exactly. The material moves so rapidly between these really different topics, celebrity arrests, municipal snow removal, without a clear thread tying them all together.
And without that thread, it's just a series of clips, not an actual argument.
Right. The script jumps from Don Lemon's legal issues to Trump's tweets. Then suddenly we're talking about trash palaces in New York, then California riots, then back to Ilhan Omar's finances. It feels, I don't know, like a stream of consciousness rant.
Like a clip show, yeah.
And the transitions are often just, so anyway, or moving on. That doesn't really prepare the listener for why these things are connected.
It creates a kind of narrative whiplash. And I wonder what that does for retention, especially for the normies he's trying to read. If you don't know why you're going from point A to point B, you just sort of treat each segment as disposable.
That's a good point.
You might enjoy the part about Don Lemon, but then completely tune out when it gets to the snowplows because you just don't see the link.
So what's the suggestion here?
Well, what if you created a central thesis statement right at the beginning? Something that puts all these events under one big theme, like the collapse of order, or maybe hypocrisy in leadership.
So you create a container for all the chaos.
Precisely. That way, the snow in New York and the riots in California aren't just random events. They become symptoms of the same disease.
Okay. Give me an example from the text.
Sure. So instead of just jumping from Don Lemon's arrest, which is framed as a First Amendment thing, to New York sanitation, which is framed as a socialism thing, you could build a bridge.
Like what?
The narrator could say something like, just as we see a breakdown of legal standards in the Lemon case, we're seeing a physical breakdown of infrastructure in New York.
I see. So you're turning a list into a story. The trash piling up isn't just bad weather anymore. It's part of the same systemic failure.
Exactly. And there's another spot, too, with the nice agents bit.
Oh, yeah, where Trump renames ICE.
Right. It's treated like a throwaway joke. But later, the script talks about the No Secret Police Act in California. You could use that nice segment as a hook to deliberately contrast federal versus state authority. It changes the experience from, here's another crazy thing, to, here's how the battle lines are being drawn.
That definitely elevates it from just reacting to, analyzing. Okay, let's move on. The next big thing is credibility.
This is a big one.
The script blurs the line between, let's say, legitimate commentary and just outright satire or conspiracy, and that really risks undermining the factual claims.
It's a tough balance to strike in this genre.
It is. I mean, you've got these plausible criticisms, like the Steve Forbes interview about Ilhan Omar's finances, or the ghost daycares in California.
Right, the stuff that seems genuinely researched.
But then it's mixed with these intentionally absurd claims, like saying Zoran Mamani is Jeffrey Epstein's son, just based on a photo, or that the left's religion is abortion. When everything is presented with that same 10 out of 10 intensity,
The audience can't tell the jokes from the facts.
Exactly.
And for the target audience, the normie, that's a huge problem. I mean, if I don't know if you're joking about Epstein's son, why should I believe you about daycare fraud in Minnesota?
So the suggestion is to draw a clearer line in the sand?
Yeah, I think you have to. You need to clearly demarcate the comedy segments from the reporting. If the goal really is to red pill the normies, you have to build trust before you can deploy, the really wild satire.
So how would that look in practice? A tonal shift?
A definite tonal shift. Take the ghost daycares part with investigator Nick Shirley. That's presented as serious investigative work. State records, law enforcement, billions in fraud. I'd say treat that section with a completely different tone.
How so?
Slow down the delivery. Drop the memes for a minute. Let the gravity of billions in fraud actually land. Make it sound like a real expose.
And on the other side of that coin, with the more speculative stuff?
Well, look at the AI image of the protester flipping off the ice age. The narrator admits it's AI, but then mocks people who believe. My suggestion is to apply that same skepticism to your own conspiracies.
To show some intellectual consistency.
Exactly. Say something like, look, the Mamani Epstein thing is just a funny meme. Unlike this very real documented fraud over. It tells the viewer, I know when I'm joking, and I know when I'm serious. And that makes the serious parts hit so much harder.
Which leads us perfectly into the language. The script's heavy use of specific derogatory slang and in-group terms really limits its reach. It works against that stated goal of reaching normie.
The words are acting as filters, basically.
Totally. It leans so hard on terms like retard, cucks, mush-brained, kamikaze Karens. And while that might signal authenticity to a certain subculture, for the general public, it's an immediate exit ramp.
It just reduces the whole thing to name-calling instead of persuasion.
Right. A viewer might agree with you about the snowplows, but if they hear you calling people retards, they're just going to tune out because of the delivery, no matter how valid the point is.
It's just friction. And if your goal is persuasion, you want to remove friction. I'd recommend a kind of Trojan horse approach.
Meaning?
Keep the high energy, keep the anti-establishment stance, but elevate the vocabulary. Make it more descriptive and less, abusive. Let the footage do the work. The clips described here sound powerful on their own.
Okay, so let's get concrete. How would you rewrite some of those moments?
Okay, take the woman blocking the car, the kamikaze Karen. Instead of just using insults, focus on the contradiction in her behavior. You could say she's claiming to be a victim of violence while she is literally diving into moving traffic.
That's much more effective. You're letting her own actions condemn her.
The visual is strong enough. The insults just diluted.
And what about the segment on Hassan Piker?
Same idea. The script goes for ad hominem attacks, calling him gay and coward. A much stronger critique would focus on the ideological contradiction.
The socialist in the expensive press vest.
Exactly. You highlight that irony. Say something like, he calls for revolution from the safety of a costume. That's a biting critique that sticks with a general audience way longer than a schoolyard insult. It frames him as a performer, not a revolutionary.
I see how that shifts the focus from just anger to the subject's actual behavior. All right, let's look at the logic holding all this together.
Yeah, I was wondering about this.
The script often conflates correlation with causation, and it does it without much evidence. That really weakens the political critique.
There's some big leaps in there for sure. They rely on the audience already agreeing with the premise.
Completely. It just asserts that socialism is a direct cause of snow not being plowed in New York, or it links the Epstein files to Tsar and the Lani because of a facial resemblance. These are logical leaps that only satisfy a confirmation bias.
Right, and if you want to radicalize a normie, you have to give them an argument they can actually repeat to their friends without getting laughed out of the room.
So the suggestion is to just strengthen the causal links, make them explicit.
Yes. If the argument is that policies cause the trash pileup, explain which policy. The script actually mentions a $12 billion budget gap later on. That's a hard fact.
So move that fact up. Rearrange the evidence.
Precisely. Instead of just saying, this is socialism, point to the budget gap. Say, Mayor Adams flagged the $12 billion gap. That money has to come from somewhere, and it looks like it came from the sanitation department. Now you have cause and effect. You've moved from ideology to math.
Is there anywhere else the logic feels a bit hypocritical?
I think so. The part about the citizen journalists hacking the anti-ICE website. The host praises them for doxing the anti-ICE group, but condemns doxing of ICE agents. To an outsider, that just looks like a double standard.
Our autists versus their autists, as the script says.
Right. You could frame it differently as counterintelligence. The argument becomes, they initiated a campaign against federal agents. This response is neutralizing a threat. It moves the argument from simple tribalism to tactical defense. It implies a moral hierarchy a normie can understand.
Okay, that brings us to our final point, the wrap-up.
The call to action, or the lack of one.
The material is great at using humor and memes to keep you watching, but the actual call to action gets buried under all the irony.
It's that doomer aesthetic. You get the laughs, but you lose the mission.
Well said. The video ends with this chaotic sign-off, stay weird, faded, right after a really serious segment about a woman resisting arrest. The emotional whiplash is intense. You don't know what you're supposed to do with all this information.
It's like shaking up a soda bottle and then just putting it back in the fridge. All that energy is left unresolved.
So the suggestion must be to give the audience a directive.
I think you have to. A more structured wrap-up that synthesizes the outrage into some kind of action. If the point is to vote or support citizen journalists or whatever it is, make that explicit and serious at the end.
How would you restructure that closing sequence then?
Well, the Alien Enemies Act segment from earlier is a high point. It's specific, it's legal, it's serious. I'd use that cone to close the whole thing. And on that legal victory, not the screaming woman.
So something like,
The laws exist, like the Alien Enemies Act, but they require enforcement. It's up to us to make sure that happens. It gives the viewer a sense of agency.
And what about the Don Lemon part? That felt like a big win for the creator.
It was, but it was mostly used for mockery. You can consolidate that. Use it as the closing proof that the law is finally being applied equal. Connect it all the way back to Trump at the beginning. We started with Trump being prosecuted. We end with Lemon being prosecuted. The scales are balancing.
That creates a full narrative arc, not just a collection of clips. A much stronger ending.
Exactly.
Okay, so to recap the main points for our listener, Nuxanor, the material has this undeniable energy, a really distinct voice. We're not trying to dull that edge at all.
Not at all. We're trying to sharpen it so it cuts deeper. I mean, the creator has a real knack for finding these under-the-radar stories that the mainstream ignores. The sourcing is fantastic. It's just the packaging that needs some work.
Right, so the actionable steps. First, structure. Use thematic bridges. Don't just say, anyway. Connect the New York trash to the California riots under a single theme like systemic failure. Make the audience see the pattern. Second, credibility. You have to separate the memes from the investigations. Be serious when you're talking about fraud. Make it clear when you're just joking around. That builds trust, so you don't spend your credibility on a meme. Third, vocabulary. If you want to convert normies, you have to speak a language they can listen to. Ease up on the slur. Let the absurdity of the clips do the heavy lifting. Be the narrator, not the heckler.
And finally, causality. Draw clearer lines. Don't just blame a buzzword like socialism. Blame the specific budget cuts that left the snow on the ground. That's an argument that wins debates. Give your audience the logic, and they can go win arguments for you.
Nuxanor, thanks so much for submitting your work. You have a ton of powerful information here. With a little structural engineering, this could be a really devastatingly effective piece of persuasive media.
Indeed. Keep digging for those ghost daycare. That's the kind of story that changes minds. Just make sure the delivery is as strong as the discovery.
Please send your revised draft back to us. We would love to review it again. Until next time, keep refining your work.